Our team seems in a really good position. We have a relatively small team and we stayed relatively small even during the last run. There's still a lot of transactions happening. So our goal doesn't shift too much.
Hello and welcome to today's interview. My name is Claudio and this is Cryptocurrencies, the channel that brings you crypto news, reviews, tutorials, and interviews with a focus on the Kusama ecosystem. And joining me today is Christian Dirk from Oak Network and Turing Network, their canary, who's going to talk to us about Oak Network. Is going to explain what they're all about, what they've got to bring to the table in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems. So Christian, thank you very much for coming on. I know this is the second time we've been talking. You were last on with Sam. We're talking about the future of the Kusama Parachains, if I'm not mistaken. That was the topic, so it was quite an interesting one. And yeah, if you want to quickly just introduce yourself and then maybe explain what Oak Network is to somebody who's never heard of it before.
Yeah, sure thing. Firstly, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back and speaking with you. It's been what, probably a few months since we last spoke, so it's really nice. But for everyone who's new, my name's Christian Dirk. I work at Oak Network as a researcher. I'm also the head ambassador for the Australian and New Zealand region for Polkadot. My job entails like a few different things, but I think the core of it is making sure that we have like core, really strong research to put together at Oak Network, which creates automation functionality for Polkadot and for Kusama. The best way to think about it when I explain to people that don't have a lot of technical kind of experience is to think of it as a blockchain which can be used to schedule future transactions based on an event trigger. So when a certain event happens, another chain can schedule a future event on our chain. So this has a lot of different applications in the DeFi space, but essentially our goal is to automate as many transactions for the people as possible to create a greater level of security, profit, and lots of different features.
Wow, interesting. And that was really good because you was explained in a non-technical way as well. So, I mean, anyone can understand that, which is great. So do you want to tell us about Turing Network? So you launched your Canary network quite a while back. I've personally contributed to that crowdloan as well. Quite a few people did. I think they've used my referral link as well. So that was pretty good. Thank you for that as well if you're watching it and you did contribute. Yeah, just tell us about Turing, like how are things going with that? Because the idea is that you're going to be doing all of your testing on there. I mean, it is a staging environment, not a testing one, right? Because it's ultimately production with real life data, but you are running your tests there. So how are things going on that side, and what kind of integrations have you done so far?
Yeah, so for anyone who's unsure, we secured our Turing, which is our Kusama Parachain slot earlier in 2022, around June, and we had quite a successful launch. And our core integration that we have set up now is with the Mangata DEX. So our token Turing is available on that DEX, and we've also included a couple of great features. The main one that we're really behind right now is the auto compounding for our staking. So users can stake to a delegator that they like, and then they can automatically take the rewards and put it back into the stake at a period or frequency whenever they choose, which we think is like a really huge benefit for the entire ecosystem. The idea that you can kind of set and forget your coins just to passively earn kind of income off them in a completely non-custodial and safe way is we think something that's really beneficial. At the moment, we have that launch for our Turing token, but the hope is to eventually offer multiple other parachain tokens through that. And we also want to offer auto compounding through and other types of liquidity provision. So we're working really hard to have that coming soon to Mangata X, hopefully. And we're also working with as many partners as possible that really want to use those kind of auto compounding features. It's going to be hopefully a really exciting year this year for us. From my perspective, I think 2023 is going to be really the year of the parachains. I think in 2022, we spent a lot of time really putting the effort to get the parachains set up so that we have this base level of infrastructure so that everyone kind of knows how to get it going. And I think there's going to be a really significant boom in 2023 across a lot of unpredictable parachains. And I'm really excited to see how that works, and so that we can see more transactions coming into the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem, so that we at Oak and at Turing can automate as many transactions as really possible. But I think it's going to be a really interesting year from anyone who has any interest in Polkadot. I think we're going to see a lot of shifting compared to the last couple of years.
So one of the things that you guys can do at Turing and Oak is, for example, on Mangata DEX right now, if you want to place a buy order or a sell order, you have to use the liquidity pool that's available, but there's no option to set a trade, like to preset a trade, like a buy or a sell order at a specific price, and to just wait until that actually fills. So is that something that you guys at Tour or Oak can do to make that happen? Like, is that the type of features that you could actually create, or would that be different?
Yes, very much so. Anything that triggers an event or an action that can be used through the XCM bridge or any type of cross-chain message protocol is something that we're really looking at. So if our users and if Mangata users, if that's what they want to be able to use our automation functionality for, then we're looking at it. The ones that are really common, like buy and stop orders and iceberg orders, there's a lot of different types of things that we're looking at. And the hope is that as Mangata and like Beam Swap and Stellar Swap, and as all the dexes really grow and they have like a significant level of transactions, we're really going to be, we already are consistently looking at their traffic on the chain to understand what the most common types of transactions are and how people are really wanting to use those dexes, so that we can offer those types of services once our chain's ready across Polkadot and across Kusama, so that any type of automation that the users want to be able to do, we want to be able to do it for you. We're really hoping to let the user base guide us when it comes to that, because there's how we want to do our types of things, but we want as many users as possible to be able to do that. And automation is also really useful for users with less technical experience. If you are like a high level dev and you're already like really have a high level understanding of like lots of palettes, of lots of extrinsics, how to use Polkadot.js, you potentially won't really need to use some of our automation functionality because you're already such a high level user. But if you are the type of person that is potentially forgetful or doesn't really understand how to do some types of things, well, then you can use our automation functionality to kind of protect yourself a little bit, so that you know that it's safe and that it's going to happen at this event. You can set the action, you can be like, this is when I want this to happen, and it just executes itself, which creates that level of kind of a greater level of security and almost like a greater level of convenience, which is often something that is really missing in DeFi. To do everything is sometimes really difficult. And that's why I often find that some people, you get people kind of making mistakes, like holding their coins on centralized services, because it's that lack of convenience to use a different type of service. And it's not until we have a problem that everyone goes, oh yeah, I should be doing this. So our hope is that by offering those types of functionalities, like you mentioned, that people will be more happy to come to a DEX or to a decentralized service.
That's awesome to hear. And so when you say you're still working on providing the dashboard, I should say, for the community, I mean, when you're going to launch that dashboard, is that going to have like an access point directly to these dexes, like Mangata, for example, or maybe other dexes like Polkadex? I'm sure you're probably aware of them as well. They've got the order book dex launched on Polkadot. And so will there be like a Turing Network dashboard which will allow you to connect to all these different parachains and then to perform certain actions within the Turing Network dashboard, or how will it actually work from that aspect? I'm just curious to hear more about the dashboard that you're working on, and what kind of features will it offer?
Yeah, so I think the core thing with the dashboard from the first perspective is we really want to be able to visualize good information, so that from your perspective, you can understand how much you're earning through your traditional stake, how much extra you're gaining through the auto compounding. Is it a better kind of to be moving across different validators? So we really want to have a visual experience where you can understand actually what you're doing, because I think currently it can be quite difficult. I have a lot of different tokens from different crowd loans because I've been involved in the space for a while, and I stake a bunch of different ones, and it can often be really difficult to actually understand, like, how much am I earning off these rewards and how consistent is it, and what happens if one of the validators is consistent with verifying blocks. So understanding what's actually happening as opposed to just seeing my number go up is something that I think is really useful. So our core goal for any type of dashboards is to make sure that it's really visually useful, so that it can be, it starts from kind of that position where it's like, oh, this is helpful to me in my everyday trading or whatever I'm doing, of just understanding my position. And then we can kind of grow more features into it. So then we'll have more integrations with like a lot of the dexes, and we'll work out what our users kind of want to do. But the first step is always going to be making sure that we have something that's kind of useful. There's a lot of visualization tools out there already, and a lot of great dashboards and a lot of kinds of things like that. But it can be really difficult to actually get users into using them consistently, because they have these really difficult almost like a barrier to entry where you need to understand what you're looking at. And if it's already too complex, then you just give up. Whereas we just want something simple to start off with, and then we'll kind of understand what works and what doesn't work, and we'll bring more of those types of things in.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. And we definitely need a user-friendly UI or dashboard that can allow us to see that. And that's actually a good idea, because now you can connect your Polkadot.js to pretty much any dApp within the ecosystem, right? And I mean, we should be able, like technically speaking, we should definitely be able to see what we're staking across the ecosystem using that same wallet, or maybe even connecting multiple wallets if it's possible, and then just group everything together, aggregate that information so that we can see what we're staking, what we're generating, if there are any issues, because sometimes you just don't have time to follow every single thing you're staking. Like I'm also staking with Turing. I'm staking like with the Polka House validator since the beginning. And, you know, like I don't really follow every single day, you know, what I'm doing, how things are going there. I just basically receive the rewards. Sometimes I compound them. Sometimes I might sell for some KSM. But, you know, like ultimately, I think we should definitely have a visibility over what's going on, you know, just to keep track of our stakes. So yeah, definitely, that's definitely a good job there, what you're doing. Is the plan to launch the Turing dashboard maybe in Q1 of this year, even if you can't give like exact dates, because I'm sure the community, you know, would want to see when that's going to happen. And will you then launch it on Oak Network soon after, or what's the plan there?
I'm not 100% sure when we will complete the launch of any of the dashboard features. I hope that it will be in Q1, but it could be pushed to early Q2. But even then, I'm not 100% sure. That's not 100% my kind of specialty. So hopefully it'll be pretty quick. I know there's been some good progress on it. So my expectation, but it's difficult to tell. It's a bit of a wild west out there. So I don't want to commit my team to anything. But I can say that any features that we bring to Turing that work well, or at least reasonably well, we will bring to Oak. Okay. That is one of the advantages of using the Canary system. I know it can be kind of difficult for other parachains that have kind of a different parachain that offers kind of two similar services on both Kusama and on Polkadot can be, yeah, it can be like, oh, we're gonna have features to both of them. But because of the nature of our automation, that we really want to work with as many parachains as possible and as many dApps within the ecosystem, that really means that we have a pretty strict requirement to have a really well-structured Kusama and Polkadot parachain. Even once we see that cross-consensus bridge between Polkadot and Kusama, from our perspective of wanting to create automation and allowing other chains to schedule transactions through the XCM bridge on our Kusama chain, it really means that we really need to be utilizing both the Kusama and the Polkadot parachain. So we'll definitely, any features that come to Turing that work well will be on Oak. We really want to utilize that idea of using Kusama as a canary to make sure that Oak is as good as possible. But we still put a lot of effort into making sure that Turing is really operating really well, because currently a lot of the greatest volume is actually on Kusama right now, especially when it comes to amount of different types of transactions. The XCM types of transactions going across Kusama is getting quite significant now. So that's a huge opportunity for us. So yeah, you'll definitely see the dashboard for both Oak and for Turing, but I'm not sure when you will see it, unfortunately. Okay. Hopefully soon. Yeah, hopefully soon.
Okay, cool. No problem. Thank you. So let's talk about the upcoming bridging solution, you know, that's going to happen between Kusama and Polkadot. Now, when that's going to go live, it's going to make things interesting and also easier when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to, because you're going to have access to both ecosystems. So, I mean, do you think that's going to impact the way you're going to create that dashboard for Oak and Turing? I mean, will you still see a need to have it for Turing if you can just have it for Oak, which is your main network, and then be able to provide the information for both ecosystems and all the parachains?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I'm not 100% sure how it will handle the having both it set up at once, whether or not it'll be just keeping them kind of independent, or there'll be some type of kind of crossover with both. But from a research perspective, for sure, I'm really excited for the Kusama to Polkadot native bridge. I think having the infrastructure set up to handle those cross-consensus messaging so that chains and parachains can handle information coming in a greater variety of kind of avenues. Not only is that the first step to bridging towards other ecosystems, it really is the first kind of information and milestone point of when we create that kind of system where we could potentially have multiple different parachains from Polkadot, Kusama, other ecosystems, having Cosmos things, all of these different chains working together to create some form of unique type of service or feature. And then from a user perspective, you just click one button and you're just like, oh, this is cool. But really, you've gone across 5 different chains, different ecosystems. You've done a whole bunch of different kind of things. But really, from a user perspective, it's been really simple. And since I've been involved in Polkadot, which is quite a few years now, that has always been in many ways the holy kind of grail of a type of feature, where it's you're utilizing Kilt for like your digital identity, you're using like Crust, you're using us for automation, you're doing something on Moonbeam, you're doing across all these different things. But for the user, it just seems like something simple. So I think the cross-chain bridge is going to be something really, really important. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. And we'll definitely be utilizing as much as possible. We will likely, from a technical perspective, still actually we probably won't use it and just rely on either Turing or Oak, but there's still going to be a lot of opportunities for doing really interesting stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, your plan right now is to focus on automating everything within this ecosystem, right? But yeah, like you said, whenever we're going to have connectivity to Cosmos or other ecosystems, we're going to be able to bring those in as well. But I mean, what about Web2 partners? I mean, do you have any Web2 partners? And I mean, do you see any potential to work with them? Or if you don't have any, like, do you see any potential there to work with anyone from Web2 to maybe offer them your services in some way, or how would you see that?
Yeah, so it's definitely something that we consider. I am not a full super Web3 person like some people are. Like I know that some people really want to see Web3 kind of take over everything. For me, I think there's still some types of Web2 services that do just much better than Web3. For me, probably the best example is games. I'm still really happy with Web2 games. It would be great to have like some form of like collections in there and have some type of like NFT content. But at the moment, I just haven't really seen any games that I really like that aren't Web2. So we definitely understand that there's probably going to be some types of products that are going to be still utilizing those types of Web2 services. I think a big one's likely going to be like recurring payments. And we would really like to be able to offer recurring payments for Web2 services. I'm not sure if we have any Web2 partners. I could probably look, but yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head. But I think the best chains will utilize some off-chain services where it's still usable and it doesn't create a centralized node or centralized service or create any extra risk. I'm still happy to use some forms of Web 2.0 services until they kind of meet the level that of, again, it's kind of related to what we were mentioning earlier about convenience. If a service is really good and I don't give them ridiculous amount of permissions to anything, and I can still make sure that everything stays non-custodial, then I'm actually kind of okay with still using some Web 2.0 stuff. I think it takes a time to get to these like new places, like where we're going to be using like a fully fleshed Web 3.0 service, but from my perspective, we're not fully there yet. So I hope that helps.
I know that there are teams out there like Fala Network, for example, who are working on the FAT contract, PHAT, by the way, just to not sound abusive towards anyone. But it's ultimately to try to connect Web 2 apps to bring them to Web 3. However, there may be some issues there when it comes to data validation, because at the moment, I believe it's quite challenging to validate the Web 2 data coming in is actually real data and not fake data, and yeah, that's going to be interesting because ultimately they want to do that service. They want to offer that service without Oracle solutions. So let's see how things go and see maybe if any teams can use that kind of service, because I know many teams are talking about using FAT contract for various use cases. So we'll have to see how things are going to progress from that aspect. Next, let's talk about the funding for Oak Network and Turing. I know that you've just recently become a parachain, and it's still in the early days, but we also understand that this is the bear market right now. We don't know how long it's going to last, so I'm sure the community would want to understand what kind of runway do you have and for how long when it comes to funding for Oak Network and Turing to keep the developers in and not force them to make them redundant or make anyone redundant ultimately, unless they want to leave themselves, which could impact the roadmap of the project. And if you are able to talk about that, I think I would really appreciate that, and so would the communities.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, there's only so much that I'm privy to. It is my position as a researcher. I'm not one of the top dogs, but our team seems in a really good position. We have a relatively small team, and we stayed relatively small even during the last run. So a lot of the teams that had like really significant recruiting teams and that have had to kind of downscale, which we've seen quite a lot across Polkadot, across a lot of parachains. Yeah, we have a significantly smaller team, so I think we're a little bit better to handle a lot of that. We seem to have like a really good support from our investment team, and we're really happy with the progress that we're being made. And thankfully, the size of our project means that we can really handle the pressures from the market a little bit better than I think some of the other teams that are really dependent on having these really high TVLs and things like that. So I think we're in a really good position for the next few years. Everything seems really positive at our work, so I'm really looking forward to it. And we understand now that it could be rough for a while, and our goals don't change too much. We don't look at the price too much. Our real key is looking at the amount of transactions, because we really want to automate as much as possible. And whilst the values of things have shrunk very significantly, there's still a lot of transactions happening. So our goal doesn't shift too much. As long as we can get to the amount of transactions automating as possible, and the amount of different events automating as much as possible, we're kind of in a good path, and we're still able to kind of hit our goals, where a lot of other teams, I suspect, would have had goals very much based on the value of certain things. And when everything's down, it's really difficult to kind of hit those goals. So we're in a lucky position where we can really commit to what we've been trying to do for the last few years and succeed. So I think we're in a good position. You may have to ask one of the higher ups at my work next time. I'll try to get one of them to come on to talk to you next time. But everything from my perspective looks really good.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. No, it's good to hear. And one thing that I didn't ask you, and I just realized I didn't, so I'm gonna ask you now, is with regards to the utility for the Tor coin and Oak coin. So we know that it's used for governance, for transaction fees. You can also stake it, but will there be a utility merged within your dashboard for this coin to actually hopefully bring the value up, right, eventually, because of that utility?
Yeah, we're not too sure yet. I'd have to talk to one of the other team members, I think, to get their insights about the best way to do that. We've definitely considered it, but I'd say that our token has quite high utility, because the idea of, say, if we work with one of our partners in the future and they have their own staking platform, they'll still be able to pay for fees to compound their stakes in Turing. So even if you're not actually using Turing or holding any Turing, you will still create utility for our coin. So we think from our perspective, that's actually a really good driver of force there to make sure that the value stays good. It's difficult for me to make an assessment outside of that, but yeah, no, we have really good plans for our Turing coin.
That's good. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm seeing that a lot of parachain teams are normally just focusing on governance, and maybe some of them not even staking. So it's ultimately just a governance and a transaction coin and nothing else. And so the question then comes, why should a retail investor even get in to begin with, aside from just supporting the team, right? So I think utility is very crucial, and I mean, many teams maybe just don't even realize it, right? When they decide to create it and they go through the crowd loan process and all that. So yeah, it's definitely good to hear that you've got some plans for the utility. I think that's going to help the project as a whole, right? Ultimately, because you need that. And so yeah, that's been awesome. Thank you very much for talking about that. I don't think I have any other questions. I think you've answered pretty much everything. You've explained exactly what Turing Network is, and also Oak Network. So I really look forward to seeing it come to fruition. Thank you as well for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please drop a comment below. Also, don't forget to hit the like for the algorithm. And you can check out Oak Network and Turing in the description of this video. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.